Hello, and welcome to the From the Top podcast and interview series. I'm your host, Mike Martin, and I'm joined today by Denny Bohs, founder and president of Boss LLC. Denny, thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So maybe you could just introduce yourself and your business for us.
Yeah, sure. I've been, I actually originally graduated with an entirely different degree, like a lot of people maybe. I was in marketing and economics and was in the financial services world for about 6 years before I transitioned to kind of I guess we could call the technology side of things. I knew a couple of guys, businessmen who were starting a business, and I ended up joining without knowing much, and kind of went from there. I spent a lot of years working with SaaS businesses, and got into product management side of things in about 2000 and late 2011, and ended up starting my business in 2019, just looking to help folks with taking ideas that they might have and learning how to bring those to life. So just working with folks on their software and software product and project management.
Great. Um, and maybe just a little bit, do you like certain types of specific focus in your projects and the software you help with? Is that more in the financial realm or?
Well, I've spent a lot of years in my career actually in ed tech.
Mm,
First company that I worked for is now one of the largest providers in K-12 ed tech. It's called Frontline. I forget what they're calling it now. Frontline Education. It's changed names a few times. So I started there. Actually, I was employee number one, and kind of got a little bit of a love for entrepreneurial things from there. I was part of that as we built it. The first 4 years I was there, we went from two local customers to right around 5,000 customers around North America. So it was quite a ride.
wow.
Um, yeah, and so for me, I spent all told, I had two different stints with Frontline. I spent about 10 years there. I worked with another company in that was originally was a customer of Frontline's in ed tech, and then I worked with a more global company on the higher ed piece for about a year or so. So I spent a lot of my years in ed tech, and but in terms of my business, I've worked with a real diverse set of clients in real estate, quite a few in healthcare, um, and just a number of others in kind of mental health space and things along those lines. So it's been a little bit of a more of a diverse piece since I started mine.
Right. Great. Um, so is that kind of the inspiration to kind of start your own thing? Where did that sort of come from?
It actually came out of necessity.
Mm,
After I left Frontline from the second time, which was I think it was 2012, I believe. I worked for a few places, and it seemed like everywhere I went, I would be there for 3 months, 6 months, a year, and then there'd be layoffs, or the company was sold. And so I kept having these restarts. I would
mm,
work for a place and then get laid off. Work for a place, company sold, start over. And after one of those, I was always afraid of contracting because I thought, well, contracts can just go away. And it was after I worked for a place and they had a round of layoffs. I was let go again. And I started thinking back and I'm like, why am I so afraid of contracts? These so-called full-time jobs are going away just as quickly.
hmm.
So that kind of got me over my fear of contract work. And I had an opportunity. I accepted a contract and worked fairly steadily from August of 2019 up through just this past fall. Things are a little tough with the economy right now, but fairly steadily during that time period.
Yeah, that's it's interesting. I went through something similar in my career where you kind of reach this point where you realize what is stability, is it working for this large company that, may or may not keep me around, versus having your own thing. It may just be as stable or more stable or even more lucrative. So it's
Yeah.
definitely, I think, a leap that a lot of us make. Yeah. So Any misconceptions about that, or about kind of running your own thing and kind of being away from that stable full-time thing, that you share with other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it was a bit of a learning experience. I was fortunate enough to know some pretty successful entrepreneurs. The two fellows that started Frontline Education, for instance, I still know them, still see them fairly regularly, and I've been able to talk with them quite a bit. They've been a big help to me, as well as the fellow who was the advisor and the financier really behind the early days of Frontline. So that's been interesting. But for me, there's just, especially these days, you see people kind of launch an app and they do something and they get going and like, oh, I'm a serial entrepreneur and I've done, four or five things, and they're 26 years old or something. And I start thinking, how in the world are you doing all that so fast?
Mm.
And I look at mine and it's just it's so many of the little things that you don't think of. Like, for instance, just this year, healthcare has been a problem for me. Trying to run my business, and in the state of Pennsylvania, having to go through certain sets of rules there, and working with, as an individual kind of freelancer, and then working with a giant healthcare company, it's a challenge. So you spend more time on that sometimes than on actually doing the work, or the work of finding contracts. So there's a lot of little things that can really take your time. And I've one of the things I discovered was being able to get some help. Like, I found a healthcare broker,
Mm.
and it's been a tremendous help to me. I'm not a lawyer, and I've tried to kind of go through negotiations, but I got burned one time, and I learned the lesson of having a lawyer look through contracts and things. So sometimes, just trying to be an individual and a small guy like that, it's, you still have to go through and deal with some of these other things, or you're going to have problems. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly when you're on your own or even a small company, right? The logistics of running a business, even setting it up, right? They take a lot of time, and I think that can be something that does get overlooked by new entrepreneurs, right? You have to make sure you set up your company. If you have employees, you got to have payroll and benefits, and the list goes on and on. So, yeah, that's really good stuff. Um, so how do you maintain sort of your balance between your work and your time away from work, and the whole work-life balance thing?
yeah, it's interesting because it's challenging, in these days, especially after the whole COVID thing, when a lot of work. I mean, I've been doing remote work for quite a while, and now
Mhm.
there's a lot more people out there doing remote work. So competition for kind of remote contracts and work along those lines has really increased.
Yeah.
It used to be I was disciplined enough that I could say, well, it's been great. I no longer have a commute, so I can use that time for something else. And one of the things that was important to me early on was taking a part of my house and making it kind of the business.
Mm.
So I have I'm sitting in it now. It's a very small room, but it works, and it is my office. And so when I'm in here, kind of, this is when I'm working, and then I can step outside of here and be at home. And a lot of people, I think, where I used to just say, well, I'll work out of the living room today, or I'll go sit on the patio, or I'll do this, and then the lines become blurred, at least for me, between, am I really working? Am I at home? And then sometimes the kids come up. Mine are a little older now, but earlier they, when they were younger, it's, is he working? Is he at home? What's going on? So
Yeah.
when my kids were very little, I had a rule that if the door was open when I'm working, you can come in. If the door's closed but the curtain's open, you can knock and see if you can come in. But if the door's closed and that curtain's drawn, you can't knock unless somebody's bleeding. So
Right.
that was kind of, for me, how I set some of those rules when they were younger, to try
Right.
to get.
Yeah, I love that the old saying, work from home. No, I live at work, right?
Yeah, right.
And I think that's a very, very good piece of advice, is to have a strong line between when you're working, even if it is in your house, versus non-work. And I think even when people go to an office, you need to maintain that line. Maybe you don't answer emails at 9 o'clock, if you make that barrier. But I think it's about what your personal, walls are that you create to make that separation. So that's really, really good. Um, so in a sort of, we know how technology is advancing, and AI is just exploding faster than any other technology I think we've ever seen. What do you do to kind of stay on top of the pieces of technology you need for your business?
Well, that's a really good question because you're right. It is going so quickly, and sometimes it's hard for me, at least. I mean, I've been in software product management now for a little while, so I've been working with software products. Um, but that whole side of the AI, it's like, how does it fit and where can it go? Um, it is a little bit challenging, and so often for me, it's dependent upon the contract that I have and the client or clients that I'm working with. There are some who I've worked with some folks that were very technology oriented and were strong that way, and others who were maybe an investor who had an idea and relied on me to provide the technology side of it to there. So um, I try one of the things that I try to do is to really as a product manager to keep my eye on what is the problem I'm solving.
Hmm.
And if there's an AI solution that helps with that, great. Um, but if I'm just adding AI for the sake of AI, then that doesn't make sense. And so I have to really keep my eye on what is the problem that I'm solving, and then see what the solutions are, whether it's AI related or not, and then try to stay focused on that.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's easy, especially in technology, to lose sight of we're solving, in most cases, a business problem. And you've got to keep your eye on that. What is the business problem we're solving? Too often, the technology for its own sake or the templated nature of whatever we pick, right, will steer the direction. And sometimes that can take you way off of where you need to be. So,
Yeah.
it's really solid. Yeah, keep your eye on the problem, for sure. So, to the extent you're comfortable, like, give us a glimpse into, what you're looking forward to over the next 12, 18 months in your business.
It's been interesting. Things are really changing. I have been in the past finding a lot of contract work through different platforms that are out there that work with freelancers, things like TopTal and Brain Trust. I don't know if I want to drop names, but I just did. So, and then there are other platforms as well, but those are some of them specialize more in like short-term little, piecework kind of projects. And those were two that I've used personally to try and get longer term, more meatier contracts. It's been a little difficult lately to try and stay on top of that. And a lot of the contracts that are out there, there's so much competition for it. And I think a lot of the rates have dropped down quite a bit. And so it's
Yeah.
been challenging to do that. One of the things that I really want to do is to not be so dependent on some of these platforms like that. So I'm really working to try to find solutions where I can sell myself and market myself a little bit better, my company and what I do, and just go out and work directly with people,
Yeah.
one on one rather than going through these platforms because you tend to be a little bit beholden to them, and it can be a challenge sometimes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's a challenge. Pretty much everybody I talk to, it's the number one thing. How do we, find our leads and get more work and kind of continue to grow? So, yeah, definitely. Um, so if you could wave a magic wand over one area of your business and have any outcome you want, what would that be and why?
Uh, for me, it would be the thing that I'm not very good with is a lot of the kind of the sales side of it. So if I could kind of have a pipeline that's somewhat full and have something there where I can be working through some folks and have leads to work through, for me that would be great because like I said, I'm used to working through a platform where I see some things and I go out and submit proposals on work. It's almost
Mhm.
like I'm answering RFPs or that sort of thing. But I need to get better at that. And so for me, if I could find a way to say, all right, here, generate some things, because as a freelancer and in a kind of a small business here, I'm not really I'm not a Deloitte or one of those big time names that people know about. Um, but I'd love to be able to go out and start to establish that and build that reputation.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. So any advice you'd give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
Um, I think the one thing is sometimes on, especially in the last number of years, the last, I don't know how many years now, but entrepreneurship seems to be kind of almost painted like this glorified picture of, oh, you just go out there, you have an idea, and you go out and sell it. I was actually working with a client, and I had to explain to him how software development works. He was under the impression that I have an idea, I'm going to hire somebody to build it, and then I'll start making money right away, and my I won't need the developer anymore. And the one thing is to really um, make sure you know what you're getting into. And for me, I think back to the earliest product management training I received, and from a guy who was really my mentor. There's an expression out there, and that is that your opinion, however interesting, is irrelevant.
Mm,
What matters is what does the market say, and so you have to always be focused on what problem are you solving, and there's going to be a lot of other people that are trying to solve the same problem, maybe. So you have to know what differentiates you from them and be prepared to answer all these things. And then you always have to keep one eye on what's changing around you. Um, I had a years and years ago, when I was working full time for a place, we had a great product we were building. It was great. We got to a beta point. We had some beta customers. Conditions changed in the market, and we ended up having to scrap the product. I mean, it was the right call, but it was painful.
right,
So you really have to be aware of what's going on around you too. You don't want to, the old expression, don't throw good money after, or throw good money after bad. So
right.
pay attention, always be alert of what's happening around you, and work hard towards that goal that you're solving.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, sometimes you have to make the hard choices, even if it's very difficult. If that's the right thing for your business, you have to do it. I always say I love logic, science, and data, right? Base things on that, the data from what the market wants and everything. And I love that your opinion is irrelevant, but what's important is what the market says, right?
I
So,
wish I could take credit for that, but that comes from the good folks at Pragmatic Institute. They're
yeah.
what they do with product training there.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Well, has been excellent. Thank you so much, Denny, for the time today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And to everyone listening, I thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.